Happy Sunday, everybody. Today we're looking at the Kato SD70Aces. Okay, let's jump right into it. This review has been a bit of a long time coming. 9394 and 8574 have some pretty serious runtime on them. I've had these locomotives for a good long while, and they have been a mainstay on my layout for quite some time. And there was a period of time when I actually considered selling these off just because of some, we'll call, reliability issues, and we will get to that in a little bit. But I have recently just picked up 844, and it's been featured in a lot of my my weekly video or my daily videos every week, and it's still in its relatively stock configuration. I haven't done any weathering or painting or anything like that on it yet, so we'll use it as kind of the reference to go by, and we'll take a look at all these and show some specific details that they all have. So I got these pulled up in front, and the first thing I always want to talk about when we talk Kato locomotives is the thing you need to deal with almost right away is to get rid of the Kato coupler. If you don't have the means to get yourself a good set of microtrains replacements yet, I have mentioned in several videos it is better to buy these in bulk and do multiple engines at once just for the price savings. I have a Empty Wallet Wednesday where I go over which is the proper microtrains replacement to put in there that gives you the proper coupler height. You can see that this runs really nice together. But if you do not have the means to get multiples, I have also mentioned in the past, go ahead and trim the little notch right off on the side here, and that will help with reliability on these. Here in short order, I am going to start doing a weathering series where we add a little bit of detail to this. It'll be my Empty Wallet Wednesday for the next few weeks, and I'm going to go ahead and do the coupler replacement then. So I'm not going to worry about doing that on this. Also, I complain a lot about this, and Kato is one of the worst offenders. No painted footsteps, and the handrails are not safety painted as well. Not a deal breaker by any means. It's just most higher end companies tend to already do this. It would be a nice added value on these if they had painted safety rails and footsteps. That being aside, there are lots of different runs of these engines and multiple, different body specific alterations, like the safety cab and whatnot on the BNSF, also cab headlight or nose headlight, that type of stuff. Lots of different options out there on these. You can get them in lots of different configurations, so really cool addition to any layout, really. The one thing about the Katos, they're not quite up to snuff when it comes to, say, the Broadways, but really excellent detail for the price that you're getting these things in. The truck detail on these is really nice. I'm not as big a fan on the UP as I am, say, the BNSF or some other ones that I've seen. The grays that they end up using on the plastic end up giving them kind of that plasticky look, and I'm hoping to take that out when I do a bit of weathering on this machine. But radiator grills on these are top notch. Everything is good and deep, and the mold quality is really quite nice. Also, to be noted, unlike some other manufacturers and even some other Kato models, the handrails are nice and thin and very strong and well attached. The door detail on these are, especially these newer run ones, have really nice crisp lines and good depth. You can really see it on this UP that they've got really nice detail built into those. Again, I wish we had some painted stuff here, like the fill and whatnot here. Should have some red on it. It would just be some nice added touches. I realize it adds more cost to things, but sure would be nice on these more budget ones if some of those easy to do details were already taken care of for you. And something that I have noticed on most all of my Katos, it seems like the rear steps have a bit of a warp to them. And I don't know if it's just from heavy pulling or what, but they all seem to have this, so kind of sucks. It doesn't seem to affect the functionality of the machine at all. It's just part of the design of the Kato on these, so something to be aware of. And okay, decal work on these. You can kind of zoom in on those. They're not readable by any means, but again, these are, although considered kind of the standard amongst engines, really some of the best budget options you're going to find out there right now. Okay, we've got the BNSF in frame. This one has a bit of weathering on it and a bit of painting, so if there's any imperfections, that is something that I did, so don't hold it against the Kato by any means. I really like the BNSF's look better than the UP on this, to be honest with you. The trucks just have a nicer tint to them, and I'm a sucker for a BNSF. I would probably like to get my hands on a couple of NS's at some point, because I'm also kind of an NS fanboy as well. But there are some things that you can see on here that are a little more difficult to see on, say, the UP, and you do really see some more truck detail on these. The hoses as well on the front here. I don't know if you can quite see that. We will turn in just slightly here. Yeah, the MU hoses, air hoses up front here are a little bit lacking, but again, budget engine and nothing that we haven't seen before on the UP. I'm finding multiple other manufacturers leave this, under frame stuff right here out, and I'm not exactly really happy about that. Katos seem to go together pretty well. They have a nice, easy design, and the way that they get these extra detail underneath the cab and whatnot is really quite simple, and I wish more manufacturers had that, because it really cleans up the bottom here, gives everything a nice close fit, and makes it look really realistic in the N-scale models. Air tanks and whatnot are really nice on the fuel tank. Again, nice crisp door lines. This was meant to be a coal pulling engine, so it's a little bit dirtier than normal. The downside to the BNSF, it's really hard to get the nice black paint to show up, like the dark diesel smoke on top of the exhaust pipe, but I have done that on these. You just absolutely can't see it, especially under studio lighting. And then, yeah, a little more paint here and there. This is something that I wanted in my collection. It is kind of an oddity. This is a cab headlight, SD70 in the BNSF colors. Here's 8574, and it is a nose headlight. If you're seeing flashing on the video, it has nothing to do with the decoder. This is just a product of the frame rate, so kind of just a thing that you got to deal with every now and then. It's perfectly smooth and looks great in person. I'll just run this one by, take a quick look at it. It's essentially the same as the 9394. So now it's time to talk electronics on these. All of these were bought as DC engines and converted to DCC. As I've stated in multiple of my previous videos, I have converted all of my DCC ready engines that I can, and I'm currently still going through this on some of my other machines. But for the most part, all of my Katos have been completely converted to TCS decoders, and it definitely has made a difference in the performance of most of my engines, especially these SD70s. As opposed to the Max, they tended to work pretty well, kind of whatever decoder, whether it was Digitrax or NCE. But these Aces, on the other hand, I have had some hours on, and I did have one more, I think it was 8300, it was the road number, and I ended up selling it because it was really unreliable. And I think I've come to conclude that it was more than likely the NCE decoder that I had in it. I've definitely had issues with these losing speed match. 8574, 9394, and that 8300 were the worst offenders of all of my engines, and they were kind of my Coltrane pulling engines, and I had them predating any of my Broadway Limited SD70Aces. And if you've watched any of my videos for any period of time, you know that I am a fanboy for the Aces. They are my favorite diesel engine, and I have a metric butt ton of them on my layout. And the not having sound was not a deal breaker when I first bought these. I really fell in love with the Broadways, but before that, these were kind of my go-to engines, and I love to have them pulling heavy Coltranes on my layout. The problem was every time I'd bust them out, put it back on the layout, I had to do speed matching again. And it wasn't a little adjustment here or there. It was wide swings, 20, 30, points on your CV, however you want to say it. And I honestly couldn't figure out what it was. And I thought it was just the motor system. And so when I ended up switching everything over to TCS, I was so surprised in the SD40s that the settings were exactly the same. And so at this point I had already sold 8300 because it was absolutely terrible. It had an NCE decoder in it, and the mid voltage could swing from 50 to 60 all the way up into 200 to keep it speed matched with these other engines. And I thought it was maybe the motor failing or whatever. I ended up selling it for a really good deal to some guy who wasn't scared of it, and honestly, I wish I would have put the TCS decoder in before I sold it. But I went ahead and dropped them into this, used exactly the same settings that I put in my SD40s, and sure enough, 9394 at 8574, flawless. Worked exactly as they should, perfectly speed matched to those SD40s, and haven't looked back. Picked up the 8444, same thing, put the TCS decoder in it, put in my standard settings, bingo bango, perfectly speed matched with these, and honestly haven't had to look back. I even hooked it up. It generally runs in consist with an SD90 Mac. Perfect with that, totally different run. I'm just super happy with any Kato and a TCS decoder. So if you're looking at buying these, make sure to budget in that TCS decoder if you're going DCC. It really makes a difference on these, and I've had super good luck. Also, something I should note that generally I don't run any momentum on these, and I think that these motors might have a little more strength. And this is total conjecture. I don't have the issue in the SD70 Max or any of those, but the SD90 and these SD70s are a little bit jumpy when you first click it on. And if I put a good value of, say, 10 in CV3 and CV4 for just a little bit of momentum, it smooths off the takeoff and slow down, and these really become nice, smooth engines. Another thing that I really like about my TCS decoders is I have a set of simple settings. I can certainly list them off below if anybody's interested. I don't want to have to use JMRI to set up my engines. It shouldn't be that difficult. I have a list of 6 or 7 CVs that I can just set to certain parameters and everything just works. And that's what I really like about these. I have these two consisted together, one in the forward direction, one in the reverse direction, and all I have to do is switch directions on the controller and the lights jump to the rear engine and then back to forward. Should I have the third engine in consist, much like I did in the pre-review run, the center engine in the consist, I just turn the lights off. It's really simple in my ESU. Really easy in any other system as well. Just when you're consisting, make sure you turn the lights off and everything functions as it should. So, awesome TCS. You guys really make a good product for these Katos. Again, if you're looking at purchasing these, really consider that TCS option. It really makes these excellent runners. Something else that I do want to note, I forget the guy's name. He does an excellent YouTube channel. He does awesome scenery stuff. He had mentioned that he had swapped over to TCS because of pulling power issues. And I 100% can confirm and guarantee that that is some of the issues that I initially had with these. My Broadways would outperform these by a significant margin. And once I went ahead and put the TCS in here and went ahead and activated the back EMF, these now perform at exactly the same level, if not maybe a little bit better than the Broadways when it comes to pulling power. And that is really pretty awesome. And that's saying a lot because the Broadways can certainly pull heavy loads. I have a pretty steep 2.6-ish grade on my layout around my curves, and I always struggled having these things spin out before you'd have to run them in consist. Any little bit of load, they kind of would lose it and start to slip. And as I've mentioned in some of my older videos, running in consist kind of acts like traction control. If a front engine loses a little bit of traction, the rear one kind of picks it up, and they kind of work with each other to keep wheels from slipping. Absolutely don't need to do that anymore with these TCS decoders in here. I can put a relatively long set of cars behind these and pull them up my grade, and they absolutely have no slipping problems. And when we get to the SD90s and that SD80 that I'm running, that's a whole new level of oomph. So that'll be an interesting review when we get there, because those things are absolute animals. So one other thing we really should talk about on these is the reliability that Kato has built into these things. The design that Kato has is basically the same as some other things, like some of the older Atlases and whatnot, with just a piece of copper bent down to touch the wipers on the trucks. But whether it's that little side shielding thing like I had talked about, you know, to take up some of the empty space between the body and the truck, you know, they are just super electrically reliable. The pickups on these things are amazing. They don't require a lot of cleaning, and every once in a while you'll get an engine that might be just a touch finicky. It's one either really, really dirty track, or the wiper just needs a little bit of the Atlas Conducta-Lube between it and the tip of the wheel pickups, and it's back to running 100% reliable. And when I mean every once in a while, I'm talking every 40 to 50 hours, like a lot of runtime between that, and absolutely flawless electrical pickup on these. Everybody needs to learn from these guys. They're not even doing wired pickups, and they are perfectly stable. The other thing about these, I don't know if it's because the engine dimensions are slightly different. I assume the trucks are the same between these and those SD70 Max and M's that we reviewed last time. They had an issue where being pushed through turnouts, occasionally they would derail with a lot of weight behind them or something like that. They really like to be in a pulling position. These Aces do not deal with that, and I thought the trucks were the same, but whatever design change they made to these frames, whether they're a little bit heavier, slightly longer, just a little bit different wheelbase, these things are, without, for lack of a better term, on rails. They don't derail. They're super reliable when it comes to that stuff. And I've got lots and lots of runtime on the two BNSFs over here, like, 100 hours of runtime at this point. And yeah, every once in a while they'll have a derailment, something will happen, but for the most part they're absolutely set it and forget it, and you can't go wrong. So now let's talk value proposition on these. And first thing we need to budget is the proper decoder. If you're doing DCC, I can't tell you to go with anything other than the TCS. I ran Digitrax in these and had decent luck. I did not have good luck at all with the NCEs. So just go ahead and budget in $45 to $50. If you can buy them in quantity, you can usually get a discount. So we'll just take $50 to start with for the good decoder. And right now, some of these, depending on road name, road number, that type of stuff, are selling anywhere from $90 to $120. And if you find sales, they're out there. I've seen these down in the $80 range, sometimes with a little bit of shipping on it, but on some of the major websites, Train World, some other places, you're looking at right around $90 for a new one of these. And as long as you're not looking for something kind of rare, no longer made, kind of like the 93, 94, that $90 to $100 is a pretty good price point on these. And total price on a DCC version of this is anywhere from $140 to, $150. And at that point, we are starting to encroach a little bit on some of the Broadway Limiteds that are on deep sale. So take that into consideration. If you could afford that extra $30 to $40 to jump into a Paragon 3 or a refurb Paragon 4 from Broadway, I would probably make that jump. They are just better engines in my opinion. But if sound is really not important to you and you just want something that is set it and forget it and just put it on the layout and enjoy, that $140 price point with that TCS decoder, I wish you could get away a little cheaper, but unfortunately it's just not, I don't think it's viable for these. But yeah, awesome engines. 100%, $140 all day. I would be interested in buying these. If you can find them cheaper than that used with on an auction or something like that, or in a lot, absolutely a good deal. I would not have a problem buying these things used. They are very reliable. I even have, I think 93, 94 I bought it used, so it's probably got way more runtime than 100 hours on it, and it is just as good as 85, 74, has just as much pulling power. Yeah, I can't recommend these more. They're awesome engines. I think anybody who gets them will enjoy them. So I'll see you this Wednesday. We are going to start weathering, well, not weathering, but just kind of detailing up 8444, do a little bit of truck grime on it, and get some safety paint on there, and I think it will start looking like a mighty fine engine. So have a good rest of your weekend, everybody, and I'll see you Wednesday. Bye now.